Well, guys, if it looks like I'm concerned, because I am, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about college football. I've been thinking about what I'm about to talk about ever since the national championship game. That's how serious this is. I don't want college football to turn into basically the minor leagues. No, I don't think anybody wants that. But the way things are going, we could be headed in that direction. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the machine that's been created whenever ESPN and the SEC decided to partner up. Now, well, I say I understand, but I really don't understand because I'm not in their position. But I get it. I get why SEC fans brag the way they do. The SEC is the best conference. There's no doubt about that, all right? The SEC is the best conference. But my concern is this is turning into SEC and everybody else, which is great if you're a fan of a team in the SEC. That is great. That is awesome. But at the same time, it's not, because it's turning into a monopoly. Really is. It's turning into a monopoly. And it's not, this is not me shaming the SEC. This is not me looking down on the SEC. This is not me trash talking the SEC. That's not what this is. This is me being concerned about college football, because I was concerned before I looked up the numbers, but then once I looked them up, I really, really got concerned. This is a real situation we could be walking to. Real quick, if you haven't hit the like button, please do so. Easy, simple, fast, and free. Doesn't cost you anything. If you'd like to mention something or ask me a question, comment for everybody to see, for me to address. Super chat's the best way to do that. It's the little dollar sign that you see on your bottom right hand corner, and it's a great way to support the channel. Every donation greatly helps, especially in the off season. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It gets tough in the off season, so those donations really help in the off season. And as you can see on the bottom of the screen right there, that's my PO box. Feel free to send any type of gear you want to represent your team in my background. Somebody is finally sending some Georgia gear. It took 3 years. Well, I've only had my PO box for like 6 months, so we'll say 6 months. We can't say 3 years because I haven't had it that long. 6 months it took for me to finally get some Georgia gear. But I was told on my channel, I believe it was today or yesterday, that somebody did send some Georgia gear. So Georgia gear on the way. That's the good news right there. So let's get to the meat of this real quick. All right. So when you look over the past 17 years, the SEC has absolutely dominated the national championship. 13 out of the last 17 national championships have been won by a team that resides in the SEC. And if you're a fan of the team of a team in the SEC, that's great for you, because it's turned into, it just means more. This is I know people don't like this phrase that I use, but it's really the best way I can describe it: conference homerism, where even if your team doesn't win the national championship, hey, a team from the SEC, so we're part of the best conference in the nation. That used to not exist. And I know a lot of people push back on that, and they're like, yeah, but it did exist. Like, I've been a fan of an SEC team for 30, 40 years, and we've been chanting SEC, SEC, SEC the entire time. That's not true, and you know it. That's not true. You know it. It hasn't always been this way. So over the past 17 national championships, 13 of them by SEC schools. Here's the list from 2006 to right now. When did ESPN and the SEC partner up? Get in cahoots, all that stuff. About early to mid 2000s. So this is directly correlated with that. Directly connected. All right, starting with 2006. Florida, LSU, Florida, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, and then finally a team not in the SEC, Florida State, and then Ohio State, the only Big Ten team that has won a national championship in the past 17 seasons. Then back to Alabama. Then Clemson starts making some noise. They won that national championship. Back to Alabama, back to Clemson, then LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Georgia. Honestly, if you want to shrink it down to its core base, the thing that really started this the most, yes, it was SEC and ESPN, but it was when Nick Saban arrived at Alabama. That's what changed everything. I'm not saying that he's pulling the strings, he's calling the shots and all that stuff, but him being at Alabama has affected some of these other decisions. And if you're a fan of a team in the SEC and you're like, going to blue, we've dominated forever. What are you talking? It's not just the past 17 years. You're wrong. That is incorrect. I went back, and by the way, I made a regular video about this, so I'll put that out tomorrow, right? And it goes a little more into depth. So over the past 17 seasons, the SEC 13 national championships, the ACC 3 national championships, and the Big Ten 1. If you back up before that, and you look at between 1980 to 2006, which you could back up even more, and it would prove it even more so, but you don't want to go too far back because then it gets, obsolete. You really don't care. So I backed up to 1980. I thought that was far enough. So you back up to 1980 up until 2006 in the recent dominance of the SEC. In that span, the SEC had a total of 5 national championships. 5. And I'm talking about teams that were in a specific conference at the time that they won the national championship. So, for instance, Penn State won a couple of national championships, but they were independent. But I can't count that for the Big Ten because they weren't in the Big Ten yet. Same thing goes for Miami. So keep that in mind. So the SEC had 5. The ACC had 4. If you counted Miami, all of the Miami national championships, they would have like 7. But Miami wasn't in the ACC at the time. So it's 4. Big Ten only 2. So the Big Ten problem has existed for a while. It's not just during this recent SEC domination. You go back 1980 to 2006, it still existed. Only 2 national championships, and that was a shared national championship for Michigan and Ohio State. That was it. Pac-12 had 3. I'm counting the 2004 USC that was done away with. They still won it. Even though it doesn't count, they won it that year. Big 12 won 7 during that span. Yeah, lowly Big 12, the one that everybody takes a dump on because, Georgia just blew them out 65-7. Big 12's always been crap. It hasn't always been that way. It's just the way things have shifted. Big East had 2 national championships. Independent had 6 national championships. That's what was interesting to me. A lot of these powerhouses didn't even belong to a conference. Penn State won a couple of national championships while they were independent. Miami won several national championships while they were independent. BYU, they've always been independent. They won one in the 80s. And then, of course, Notre Dame in 1988 when they beat West Virginia. By the way, appreciate you, Andre King, for the $10 donation. Like I said, in the offseason, those donations really help us to keep us going. But there you go. That shows you the difference before ESPN and the SEC got together and after ESPN and the SEC got together. And then all this other stuff of conference homerism and the label, it just means more. All that stuff was born. And people just think that it's always been that way. And that's not true at all. It hasn't always been, you pull for the conference that you're in. Honestly, and maybe it's because I'm a West Virginia fan and West Virginia doesn't really fit in the Big 12. But I've never gotten the whole beating your chest over your conference. I never got, even when West Virginia was in the Big East, I didn't get that. So that one I can't relate to. All right, I'm going to start sitting down, guys. All right, let's shift this back down. So, yeah, the bottom line is the money, like you said, Ryan, just now, not Ronnie. Try to mix Ryan and money, I guess. Money is what runs everything, and money is what's slowly but surely, and maybe not so much slowly anymore, turning college football into basically the minor leagues. So what we're looking at is the SEC is dominating. The SEC is the best conference. Those are facts. I am not disputing that. My question is that good for college football? I don't think so. when you start monopolizing something and you do away with competition, it's not necessarily a good thing. Now, the one situation that doesn't necessarily fit that is Walmart. Everybody loves Walmart. They're a monopoly. They're they knocked out. I live in the upstate of South Carolina, and Bilo is a major grocery chain, and they knocked out a lot of Bilo stores. Now, there's still a few there, but they knocked out a lot of them, knocking out competition left and right. So we all love Walmart. That's the one outsider. But basically, whenever you talk about something being monopolized, it's not a good thing. Competition is always a good thing when you're talking about, consumer interest. When you start whittling it down to just one conference dominating everything, people are going to start to get disinterested. And some SEC fans, not all of them, I'm not trying to lump everybody into this category, but I've heard some SEC fans say, yeah, I think the SEC could split off and create their own playoffs and national championship, and they would be just fine. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. We have a precedent for that. The big wigs over there in Europe decided to get all the best soccer teams and create their own league, and it tanked fast. It tanked fast. People don't want to see that. Sports needs Cinderellas. Sports needs parity. Sports needs diversity. When you start weeding all that stuff out, then it's just not as interesting. Hillbilly Skeptic, thank you for the $2 donation, says the SEC needs 40 teams and begin their own league. There you go, right there. 40 teams is a little small. I would think about it if it was 60 teams. I know that would be one massive league, but I think 40 teams is just not enough. I don't think that would keep the interest of the national audience enough. It might be able to go for a while, but I think eventually that would fizzle out as well. 40 would last longer than the current state. Like if they broke off at 20, then that wouldn't last very long at all. If they expand to 40, then that does give it more longevity. But if the SEC does break off by itself, I would say you need 60 teams. Will Klein, thank you for the $5 donation, says TCU played like a middle school football team whose balls haven't even dropped yet. Yeah, I agree with that. Even my my wife, who she actually loves college football. I was blessed in that area. She even complained about it. If she complains about it, it was a bad football game. That was the worst national championship I've ever seen. So not only was it the largest margin of victory for a national championship, but it was also the largest margin of victory for any bowl period. I didn't know that until I looked that up as well. I was like, my gosh, that is insane. The second largest blowout in national championship history actually doesn't exist anymore, and that's when USC blew out Oklahoma in 2004 by 36 points. I mean, they played and it actually happened, but that doesn't exist on the record books anymore because USC had to vacate that national championship. So apparently, that game was never played. Those players never existed, and so on and so forth. But just to give you a comparison, the next highest blowout in the national championship was by 36 points. That's a big margin right there. That's a massive blowout. And people like to trash talk before games, and Georgia was trash talking, saying, we're going to blow them out by 30. And people were like, yeah, we know you're going to beat them, but 30, that's a little ridiculous. That was actually conservative. 30 points would not have covered the spread on that. So nobody saw that coming. And if you go back and you watch the game, what happened was, and I've said this several times, but just in case you haven't caught it yet, Georgia made TCU submit. They made them tap out. After the first quarter, you could see TCU players not trying. I mean, they were quitting on plays. They weren't running at full speed. They weren't hitting their hardest. And that's what great teams are supposed to do. Nick Saban himself has said that. Great teams make the other team quit. You're so good that you demoralize them and you make them quit. And that makes the rest of the game easy street. Super easy. And that's exactly what we saw in the national championship. TCU was checked out of that game by the second quarter, and the rest of the game was going through the motions. That's what it was. It was going through the motions. And it was sad to see. And I knew the shellacking was coming as far as, looking down on the Big 12 and saying, we don't even belong in a Power 5 league. We should be demoted to the Group of 5 and all that stuff. So, people quickly forgot that TCU did beat Michigan, who blew out Ohio State on the road, who only lost by 1 point to Georgia. People automatically forgot that. Hey, Billy Skeptic, thank you for the $5 donation. Says Disney is talking about selling ESPN because of subscriber loss. Interesting. What if a large SEC league bought ESPN in a few years? SEC would be like AAA, NCAA, AA. That's interesting as well, because I don't think the NCAA as an institution or as a governing body is going to exist very much longer, or at least in football terms. Whether it's just the SEC, whether it's the SEC and the Big Ten, or the SEC, the Big Ten, and another conference, eventually there will be conferences that break off from the NCAA, create their own national championship and playoffs, and create their own rules, their own governing body, and their own enforcement. All that stuff, that's going to happen. So as far as that goes, I would be for that, because maybe I'd have to look at that second part again. So we're gonna focus on the first part, what you said. Disney is talking about selling ESPN because of subscriber loss. That could be a good thing, because maybe the buyer is more willing to spread the money to some of these other conferences instead of focusing on the SEC. And I know now the Big Ten is going to be making comparable, if not maybe even a smidge more than the SEC, because of Fox. Fox has fully invested into the Big Ten. So we'll see if they can shrink the competitive gap. But if you go back to 1980, the Big Ten's only won 4 national championships. That doesn't, no, wait. Three national championships. 3. That is 3. Yeah, Silas, our basketball team has checked out. I don't know what happened. I think, honestly, side note, I'll go back to football. Honestly, I think that technical by Stevenson and him not caring about, it affecting the game, not taking responsibility, our team has checked out because of that. So I don't even know what to say about that anymore. But if ESPN, if did sell ESPN to another interested party, maybe that party would be more interested in spreading the money out more instead of just focusing on the SEC, and that could bring back competitiveness across the board. If they do their research and look at this and say, "Whoa, yes, the SEC has been dominant, but it's only been since ESPN and SEC hooked up," And maybe by looking at that, they're like, those 20, 25 years before that, these other conferences were actually very competitive. Give me 1 second. I'm telling you, every time I go live, my cats want to go ape on me. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye, so I wanted to mute that and stop it before it happened. But anyways, maybe that new party that's interested in purchasing ESPN, they actually do their research and they see that time slot, 1980 2006. Wow, that was actually very even as far as competitive. That could actually make more money if you make all these conferences competitive and viable and able to win a national championship at any given year, instead of, well, it's who could knock off the SEC. Does anybody knock off the SEC this year? Clemson was the team that slew the giant, but then they fell off and nobody's picked it up since. So maybe that party can see that before all this happened, that there was competitiveness across the board, and that could actually bring in more money, because you're getting interest from fans all over the nation, not just from SEC fans. You get more interest from Pac-12 fans, more interest from Big 12 fans. I mean, from 1980 to 2006, actually, the Big 12 had the most national championships with 7. Independent came in second with 6 because Penn State was independent when they won their national championships. BYU, of course, was independent when they won theirs. Miami was independent when they won their national championships in the 80s and early 90s. And then, of course, Notre Dame in 1988. So there's money to be made if you can keep everybody competitive across the board. So when you start funneling money to one single entity, and that entity just keeps growing and growing and growing, and they start taking over, then these other fan bases that represent these other teams start to check out and start to not be interested because what's the point? We're not in the SEC, so what's the point? Hopefully they start having a business mind instead of let's monopolize this thing and make this a minor league type of thing. That seems to be the mindset of ESPN right now. They're trying to make college football basically the minor league of the NFL, because you do realize ESPN is making even more money off of the NFL. So they're trying to bring the SEC up to that level. We want the SEC to make that much money for us. We like our NFL money. The SEC is good money, but they're not there yet. So they're trying to build it up to where they can be competitive with the NFL when it comes to revenue. That's a good question, Ryan, about Group of 5 playoff. I've been talking about that basically ever since I started my channel. So with this new playoff expansion, 12 teams, we know that the highest ranked Group of 5 champion will get an automatic bid, and that's fine. I still think that there needs to be a separate playoff / national championship for the Group of 5. And I like I've talked about this several times, but I'm going to reiterate it. I liked what the bowl season chairman said about, we want to raise the eligibility from 6-6 to 7-5. I agree with that. If you went 6-6, you don't need to be going to a bowl anyways. That's stupid. If you have any shot of finishing the season with the losing record, which if you lose a bowl, you finish with the losing record, then you don't need to be in a bowl. Raise it from 6-6 to 7-5. I agree with that. And the consequence would be 10 of those lower bowls would be done away. Well, who occupies those lower bowls? Mostly Group of 5 teams. Your Conference USA champs, or runners-up, or third place, whatever. ACC, 4th, 5th place. Sun Belt champions, runner-ups, Mountain West, MAC, all those. They basically occupy those bottom bowls. So instead of punishing the Group of 5 teams and taking away those lower bowls, even though some of those teams are still bowl eligible, they're like 8-4, 7-5, but because of conference affiliation to those bowls, they would be done away with. That's another thing that needs to be. Stop doing that. Conference affiliation, conference tie-ins, whatever you want to call that, for these bowls creates some terrible, terrible matchups. Florida and Oregon State should not have played each other. That was a mismatch. But because of bowl tie-ins and, third place Pac-12 team or whatever place plays 4th place SEC East team, no matter what, even if one is really good and one's really bad, they got to play. Get rid of that. Let's have some better matchups in some of these bowls. Now, I will say this. In this particular bowl season, we actually got a ton of great matchups. This was one of the few really, really good bowl seasons. I enjoyed it a lot. Hillbilly Skeptic, thank you for the $5 donation, buddy. How much money did SEC lose because bad teams from Big Ten are clogging up the big bowls? Bama versus FSU or Texas would have taken most eyes off TCU, Michigan. That's a good point right there. And that's actually that's a point for the SEC. And I actually agree with that. Even though I'm talking about, demonopolizing and sharing the wealth, I still believe in rewarding the better teams. So I actually agree with you on that. And that kind of ties into what I was saying about getting rid of these conference tie-ins. Number one, they're creating some terrible matchups. Number two, they're creating some matchups that nobody cares about. Whether you want to call those one and the same, doesn't matter. Bottom line is terrible bowl games. Will Klein, thank you for the $5 donation. But he says, I'm going to be the first Georgia fan to send you gear. That's who it was, Will Klein right there. And I announced that earlier in the show. 6 months after getting my P.O. box, finally getting some Georgia gear. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this list. And I'm not going through all this list, but just listen to this. I got Oregon State gear before Georgia gear, TCU, Air Force, Utah State, UTEP, FIU, friggin' Colgate, Pittsburgh State, which is like lower FCS. Oh, I don't think they're classified as FCS. I think it's like AAA or something like that. But anyways, it's bottom of college football as far as the size of the league and how good they are. Pittsburgh State, I had never heard of that. I thought, hold on, let me show you. Let me show you. I thought somebody was playing a prank on me because I had never done this, and these are not traditional pit collars. I was like, is this an alternate helmet that I don't know about? Was this a prank? No, this is Pittsburgh State. That's a real team in the lower class. Pretty cool. Anyways, I got this before Georgia gear, and I have a lot of Georgia subscribers. Honestly, I thought I was going to get some national championship type of stuff. You know, like I don't know. They probably make like a pennant or whatever. And the pinwheel of pennants, by the way, will be coming back once we're done with the remodeling. All that stuff will be displayed. I showed everybody that I still have it. I will put it up. I haven't thrown it away or anything like that. So Will Klein. Bottom line is, Will Klein, appreciate you. Finally, somebody sent in Georgia Bulldogs gear, and it was you, sir, and I greatly appreciate it. Let me put that back on the screen. There you go. So if you want to send gear to represent your team, that is the address: P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Some bigger brands that I still don't have gear from, just in case you're wondering. Tennessee, I don't have anything from them. Let's see, Tennessee, Florida. That one surprises me. Florida, I don't have anything from them. Let's see here. Oregon, don't have anything from Oregon. I do have a Washington mini helmet. Let's see, any other big Texas A&M. That one kind of surprised me. Don't have anything from them. Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. A lot of SEC teams, actually, whenever I think about it. Let's see. That might be it, though. I got LSU, I got Arkansas. I got both Oklahoma and Texas, who are going into the SEC. Penn State from the Big Ten, I don't have them. Nebraska mini helmet, I don't have that. So there's a short list right there. I don't want to go through all of them. Ryan McCulloch, thank you for the $4.99 donation. I hope that I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. I don't know if I ever got that right. It's either Ryan McCulloch or McCulloch. Is it a K sound or a ch sound? Does it sound the way it looks? Pitt State is the winningest D2 school and only gorilla mascot. I go there. It's in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Nice. I didn't know that. And apparently somebody else had heard that too, because they said, wait, hold on. Where was it? Gus the Gorilla. Is that the real name, or was that a kind of a jab? That sounds correct. That sounds McCullough. Oh, so I was still saying it wrong. Ryan McCullough. There you go. My apologies, man. I was just pronouncing it the way it looks. But you gotta, names are very tricky. Like even my name is spelled weird, and people mispronounce it all the time. I get called French, Italian. I'm like, no, just to me, it's like read it the way it looks. But if you do that, it actually doesn't look right. I started thinking about another idea, guys. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do this, but I was thinking this is my prized possession. When it relates to my YouTube channel, I don't know if I would want to do a Patreon contest for it, a drawing, something like that, a super chat contest. or a contest or a prize for, score prediction contest, whatever you want to call it, something like that. But here it is. My prized possession as far as it relates to my YouTube channel. This is, forget what year it was, 2000, might have been the 2021 Shocks right there. Now, what makes this special, what makes this my prized possession is the writing you see on here. So this is signed by a lot of college football YouTubers that you may or may not know about. So we have BBD, he's a Tennessee, that's him right there. We have TikTok Chestall, he's in Georgia. I'll turn this sideways right here. Hold on, let me go down right there. That signature right there is actually Uncle Lou. That is Uncle Lou's signature right there. Let's see, we got Sea Dog Morgan, X-Wing Sports, Raj. Maybe that's another one. That's Raj. On this side, we have Trailing Foals, Pigskin Pete, VicTube, and Big Dog Brett. So this was the shoes that I wore for the first ever Slav Olympics, and I got this shoe signed. I'm going back this year so I can get another shoe signed. So give me some feedback in the community section whenever I make the post about this, whether or not this would be a good. If you're not interested, that's fine. I'll keep it. No problem. No problem. I will keep it without hesitation. But if it's something that people are interested in winning, give me some feedback and maybe we can set something up for that. Yeah, as far as West Virginia basketball goes, yeah, it's falling apart. I don't, like I stated earlier, and I'm going to state this briefly and get to college football. That technical by Stevenson with that obscene gesture, that moment right there, West Virginia basketball has not been the same. Not been the same. We have tanked. We've basically tanked. Big 12 is a tough basketball conference, yes, but we've tanked. That hurt that game, and it hurt the team. And he took no responsibility. He didn't apologize for it. Me. Don't care. But yeah, it's definitely hurt us. Let's go through ESPN's final power rankings real quick. I talked about the final AP Top 25, but let's do ESPN's final power rankings, and it's not completely different from the final AP Top 25, but there's small differences. So for ESPN, I was kind of surprised with number 2. All right, so number 1, of course, Georgia. They have Georgia at number 1 for obvious reasons. Number 2, they stuck with TCU. I got to give credit to ESPN for that one. They said, you know what, TCU did beat Michigan. TCU did have an undefeated regular season, so we're going to give them that 2 spot. So kudos to ESPN for not totally wrecking TCU. I was expecting ESPN to drop them to like 6 or 7 in their power rankings. They didn't do that, so I'm impressed with that. Number 3, Michigan. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Alabama. So same top 5 as the final AP Top 25. Number 6, Tennessee. That's the same. Number 7, Penn State. I think that's the same. Not sure. Here's where the differences start. Number 7, Penn State. Number 8, Washington. Do not forget about Washington. They ended the season by beating Texas convincingly. That was a good showing by Washington. And I think they could be even better because I do think that Michael Penix has 1 more year of eligibility. So that offense could be on fire again. Watch out for Washington to win Pac-12 next year. Number 9, Tulane. So in ESPN's final power rankings, they actually have Tulane in the top 10. Kudos. Number 10, Florida State. So in the AP Top 25, Florida State was number 11. In ESPN's power rankings, top 10 team. Totally agree with that. And watch out for Florida State in 2023. I have Florida State playing Clemson in a rematch from the regular season for the ACC championship. I have them as a 10-win season for next year. Number 11 is Utah. Number 12, LSU. Too high. Too high. I'm sorry. That is too high. I understand that they beat Alabama, but they ended up with what? 4 losses? Because I think they won their bowl. Yeah, 4 losses. Not number 12. Top 20, yes. 12, no. Excuse me, sorry. Number 13, USC. maybe it was probably because Tulane came back in the last 4.5 minutes while they have LSU above USC, but I think that's a little weird. Number 14, Kansas State. Number 15, Clemson. Not sure about that one. Number 16, Oregon. Number 17, Oregon State. I was telling y'all all year, Oregon State was a good team. I had Oregon State in my top 25 by week 2, and I kept them in my top 25. Number 18, Notre Dame. Notre Dame finished the season strong. Notre Dame was the weirdest team ever. I could not figure them out at all. They lose to Marshall, they lose to Stanford, but then they turn around and they beat Syracuse, North Carolina, and Clemson, and South Carolina in a bowl game. Go figure. And if they land, Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, Notre Dame is a serious national championship contender if they land Sam Hartman. I'm telling you, watch Wake Forest fall off a cliff. Sam Hartman's the only reason why they had decent past couple of years. They're gonna tank, guys. I'm telling you right now. Number 19 was Mississippi State. Number 20, mighty Troy. Number 21, UCLA. Told y'all. Now I predicted UCLA to have a 10-win season. 9, that's close enough, right? Number 22, South Carolina. I had South Carolina finishing with 9 wins. They finished with 8, close enough. Number 23, Pitt. Decent season, slight step back from last year, but still decent. 24, Minnesota. Everybody forgot about Minnesota. Minnesota actually finished strong. They didn't win the Big Ten West. They flirted with it there for a while. Purdue ended up winning it, but they finished strong, got their bowl win. Number 24 in ESPN's final power rankings. And then finally, number 25, Fresno State. I don't really have any big issues except for LSU at number 12. That's way too high for LSU. Hillbilly Skeptic, thank you for the $2 donation, says Kentucky is the Bama of hoops. Look at us this year. Isn't Kentucky actually struggling a little bit? Maybe they got on a little bit of a run here recently, but they struggled there for a couple games and dropped in the rankings. I know they're still a good team. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but there for a minute, I saw Kentucky kind of take a couple of losses in a row that dropped them in the rankings. Salas, I haven't looked at West Virginia recruiting here recently. I've been doing videos on other stuff, but now that we're closing in on 3 days away from the national championship, I'll start looking into all that stuff. But I've heard a lot of buzz about the recruiting. Now, as far as transfers go, that's one thing that West Virginia is not very – West Virginia has got to figure out a way to win in the transfer portal. We're doing pretty good in recruiting. He's recruiting at a good level for West Virginia. But transfer portal, we get hurt every offseason, and we don't really gain anything. Now, last year, it looked like we hit the jackpot because we brought in Graham Harrell, who attracted JT Daniels. But Neil Brown just coached him into the ground. So even if we did win the transfer portal, if Neil Brown can't learn to adapt, then West Virginia is going to be doomed. I mean, he has got to start adapting and doing some different things. He is so freaking set in his ways. That is the biggest knock on him is just set in his ways. So if that doesn't change, then it doesn't matter if we start winning the transfer portal. Nothing's going to change. I do like our schedule this year, except for that first game at Penn State. I don't like that. I think we will get drilled. I think Penn State's going to be good again, so that's going to be a bad start. But I will be at the Backyard Brawl again, this time in Morgantown, and I do think West Virginia beats Pitt in Morgantown. Because if you rewind back to last year, Pitt was a good team. West Virginia was a bad team. This is a rivalry game. It was on the road, and they still only beat us by a touchdown. And West Virginia actually had the lead by a touchdown when that infamous 4th and 6 inches, might have been 6 inches, 4th and 6 inches, whatever, came up in the fourth quarter. Had we converted, the game probably would have been over. We could have ran some more clock, kicked the field goal, stretched it to 10, and that's Pitt behind the 8 ball right there. What happens? We punt the ball away because Neil Brown overrode Graham Harrell. Pitt scores, and then JT Daniels throws a pick 6, game over. But having said that, as bad as we were last year, we only lost to Pitt by 7 points. And I don't think Pitt's going to be quite as good as what they were this year. West Virginia is probably going to be about the same, maybe one win better, 6-6. Maybe the win over Pitt will be that sixth win and we get to a bowl, even though we won't deserve it. That's one of the games that I'm confident that we will win. In Morgantown, I'm going to be there. It's not going to be, 30,000 Pitt fans like there were 30,000 West Virginia fans in Pittsburgh. That's not going to happen. You will be lucky, Pitt fans. I know you're watching. You will be lucky to be able to get anywhere close to 10,000 fans into Morgantown. Lucky. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to win that game. And that will be against a bad West Virginia team. You'll have a loss to a bad West Virginia team. That's what's going to happen next year. But I don't have any high hopes for West Virginia. And I don't know if we'll ever actually fire Neil Brown. Maybe we're just trying to run the clock out on him. We're not willing to do the buyout. I don't know. But right now, it sucks to be a West Virginia fan. It absolutely sucks. We always have basketball to fall back on, and we started out really strong, 10-2, with losses to Purdue, competitive loss, and then a competitive road loss to a ranked Xavier. But ever since we started Big 12 play, not one stinking win. It's like we have a Big 12 curse this year. I don't know. I don't know. Ever since we started Big 12 conference play, 0 wins. And what sucks is we started off the season with 2 road games in the Big 12, lost both of those, and now we've lost 2 home Big 12 games. My gosh. It's bad. I'm hoping that Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL beats the Ravens, gets back to the Super Bowl, and actually wins the Super Bowl, because none of my teams, West Virginia in football or basketball, they've never won a national championship ever. The Bengals have never won a Super Bowl. The Reds, since I've become a fan, I know they've won some in the past, but since I've become a fan, they haven't won a world championship. Let's see, the Knicks, since I became a fan, never won a world championship. I think I jinx teams. I really do. There for a short while, whenever the Vikings had Randy Moss for in the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, I became a part-time fan of the Vikings. And I believe it was 98, they finished the regular season like 15-1, but then lose to an inferior Atlanta at home because the field goal kicker forgot how to kick field goals. Why is it that teams that I pull for that want to win in particular games, specifically the field goal kickers, they forget how to kick field goals? That NFC championship game in 98, Gary Anderson, highest percentage kicker, but he missed like 3 field goals in that game. 2007, backyard brawl, 13-9. Pat McAfee misses several field goals. Even this year, I was pulling for Ohio State to beat Georgia. What happens? Field goal kicker knuckleballs it at the last second. I'm telling you, it happens all the time. I'm waiting for and Cincinnati did get to the Super Bowl last year, but I don't think it was field goals. I don't think it was field goals that doomed us. But you watch, Cincinnati will get to the Super Bowl this year, and the field goals will not be going through, and that's why we lose. That's just how it goes for us. That's how it goes for us, or me as a fan. That's how it goes for me as a fan. Surprise teams, ACC. I know I've touched on this last night. ACC, Florida State, even though they were pretty good. Watch out for Louisville. I think Louisville is going to be a top 4 or 5 team. I think the best teams in the ACC, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Louisville, and then let's see, number 5. Number 5 would actually be a guess. So my guess, Duke looked pretty good this year, so I'll go with Duke as number 5. The SEC, Georgia, of course. I think Alabama will be strong again. I think South Carolina will be even better. Not good enough to beat Georgia, but even better. So I have them in the top 3. Let's see here. I think not Florida. Missouri will be better, but I don't think I trust them enough to be that far up. Texas A&M. Watch for Texas A&M to have a big bounce back here. I'm telling you, they have the talent. I like that offensive coordinator hire. I have Texas A&M in the top 4, and then of course number 5's a guess again. So since I think Missouri's going to be better, I'll guess either LSU or Missouri for that 5th spot. But Texas A&M, I think, is going to be the biggest surprise in the SEC. I think they're in for a massive, massive bounce back year in 2023. All right, bounce back teams or top 5 teams for the Pac-12. I think Washington has a real shot to win the Pac-12. They'll be at the top. Utah is going to be there. USC is going to be there. I think UCLA will be there again. Chip Kelly is building something. This year was not an anomaly. Rewind to 2021, they finished 8-4. This is not like, oh, this is out of the blue. I didn't see that. No, I saw this coming, and I still see it coming. UCLA is going to be good again. And then I'm going to put Colorado at that 5 spot. I don't think they jump all the way to the top, but I do think Colorado will be much better to where they're competitive, and they will be a factor in the Pac-12. Big 12, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is going to be much better this year. I don't know if they'll be good enough to win the Big 12, but I think they'll be much better. I think Baylor will be a team to watch out for. Texas Tech is building something. I'm going to shrink it down to 4 since the Big 12, they don't have as many teams. So that 4th team, I'm going to say Texas. I got to put Texas in the top 4. So top 4 for the Big 12, I have Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Texas. Those will be the 4 best teams in the Big 12. And then finally, the Big 10, of course, Ohio State. Michigan's going to be good again. Not sure about Penn State. I got to look at their schedule, and I got to look at who they got coming back. But I do think that Wisconsin is going to be a much better team. I think they're finally going to have an aggressive coach in Luke Fickell. So I'm going to put Wisconsin in the top 3. Besides that, I guess I'll have enough confidence in Penn State to put them in number 4. I'm trying to be not predictable, though. I'm trying to be a little bit surprising. What's that one team that I think will surprise? I don't think it's going to be Iowa. It's not going to be Northwestern. Maybe Minnesota, but they finished strong. Let me think. Nebraska will be better, but not that much better. Michigan State. Maryland. There you go. Maryland. Maryland will take that 5th spot. I think Maryland can be an even better team. Maryland's been slowly coming up. Maybe they're ready to take that next step to the next level. So those are the best teams that I think, and some of them surprises, some of them not. Your Alabamas and your Ohio States and your Clemsons, all that stuff. But there's a few surprises in there, like Texas A&M for the SEC because of how bad they were last year. Colorado was atrocious in the Pac-12. Maryland might surprise a few people, but I think they'll be good in the Big 10. For the Big 12, I think Texas Tech is going to be a very, very dangerous team. I don't know how many wins they're going to have. I haven't looked at their schedule, but I do think Texas Tech is going to be a very, very dangerous team. I think they get Oregon in Lubbock, actually. That could be a massive win that propels them into, possibly a double-digit win season. Who knows? And then for the ACC, I really like Florida State, but that's really not going to surprise anybody. So I'm going to go with Louisville as the surprise team in the ACC. So those are the teams that I'm going to go with surprise. Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. This is a school night as usual, so I got to wake up early and do the whole school time routine. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself because that's what this is all about, talking college football back and forth. I see you, Wholesome Holloway, man, grinding over there. This is grind season. The regular season is officially over with. You know what? If you think about it, a lot of regular seasons have already been over with because some of us didn't get to bowls. That was the end of our season. Some teams played in bowls. Once they played the bowls, season over. Playoffs, lost in the playoffs, season over. And then finally, the last 2 teams to end their season, Georgia and TCU. But it is official for everybody. For everybody. It is the off season. And for us college football YouTubers, it is officially grind season. But you know how we do here at Golden Bluted. We do not stop. We keep grinding. And we try to keep you entertained. Are you not entertained? That is the question that I like to ask. It doesn't matter if you agree with me. As long as you're entertained and you keep coming back, even if it's just to tell me how stupid I am and how wrong I am, that's fine. That's fine. It's part of it. I'm just here to entertain you. So as long as you're entertained, we've done our job. Make sure to hit the like button on the way out. Shout out to everybody that stopped by, everybody in the comments section. All that stuff helps the channel. I cannot emphasize it enough. When you interact with me and comment, that helps the channel. When you hit the like button, that helps the channel. So on your way out, please hit the like button. And of course, everybody that hit the super chat button and sent in those donos to Golden Blue Dude, appreciate you, especially in grind season. That's when these college football YouTube channels really need your support and donation. So I'm going to put that post up for my prize possession. If y'all are interested in that as a prize for some type of contest, just give me a yay or nay whenever I post that in community. If not, hey, I'll gladly keep it. I will gladly keep it. No problem whatsoever. I'm just trying to reward you guys. Anyways, that's all for now. But you know how we do. Tomorrow, more videos. I've already actually recorded a video today that I'm going to put out tomorrow. So I already have content ready for tomorrow. And I'll of course shoot another video. And we will be coming live again tomorrow at 10 p.m. So y'all have a good night. It's going to be storming tomorrow, so hopefully my Wi-Fi internet doesn't get wonky. That would suck. So hopefully that stays clear. But anyways, y'all have a good night. We'll be back here tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But don't forget the regular videos as well. Have a good night. Grind season continues.